Nintendo!
Hey everyone, welcome back with Bino Mac, where today we're going to do a playthrough. We're going to do some classic mode with Ike in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. This is the first video of Brawl I'm going to do. I've already done, a few playthroughs in Melee. I did All-Star, adventure mode, some classic and stuff like that in there. Going to be a very similar, thing here in Brawl. I'm going to do some, a few classics, the characters that I like, and Brawl was when I first really started to get into the series, so there's a lot more. Gotta get out of the way of that. So there's a lot more characters in which, I'm a bigger fan of, and obviously, it being a bigger roster as well. Melee, unfortunately, it's just, it's still a great game and stuff like that, but, yeah, I mean, Ike's just my favorite, in Smash by a wide margin, so not having him in those early games really kind of just makes it more difficult for me to enjoy the early ones. But I mean, the single player content in Melee is still fantastic. I love classic. I wish they did a little bit more with adventure mode, but it was on a timed type of thing. I kind of think that there's a lot of concepts in Brawl that were supposed to be in Melee if it had a bigger development time. I think, Sakurai, obviously, who, he's the creator, obviously he said that, Final Smashes were meant to be in Melee, but, they weren't able to make it in until Brawl. I believe that adventure mode, the idea of it, I'm sure was probably going to be something similar to what we got in Brawl, Subspace Emissary. I'm sure obviously the idea changed because, in Melee, obviously adventure mode, that's where you just pick a random character and then you go through, a set amount of levels, but, they're very similar when you think about it. But, yeah, I will be playing Subspace Emissary, at some point as well, doing commentary over that too and stuff like that. It's been a while, it's been tough trying to get some time for commentary videos and stuff like that for my Let's Plays on this channel as of late. But, I'm still trying to, make it a point, and I figured, especially with the weird Nintendo thing they got going on, where, like, if you don't have commentary over your videos or something like that, they consider it just not good enough, and they'll try and take down your video, I guess, which, I'm getting, like, I'm lucky if I get 1 or 2 views anyway, so, I mean, I'm not going to get noticed, but I figure, either way, the Smash Bros. Games are some of my favorites, so I love to talk about them, and we'll go over some cut content and stuff like that, because the series has a lot of it, in episodes and stuff like that. But Brawl, once again, there's just so many features is when I think, the series started to get really fantastic. Just a small thing, like the multiple songs on each stage that you can select, in the options menu. I think, obviously, like, stickers are the things that I like. I mean, pretty much they came back in Ultimate as spirits. A little bit different, but I mean, they're pretty much the same thing, JPEGs and stuff like that, but this was still around the time when they had trophies in the series as well, and I love the new challenge mode things where, like, you can see what you have to get and, like the screen, and it'll give you hints as to what you have to do, if it's, nearby trophies that you've already gotten and stuff like that. Melee did it did have challenges, it just didn't, tell you what you had to do and stuff like that. I also, like, the only thing about Brawl that I don't like, more than Melee is obviously one of the worst features they ever did in the entire series was tripping. Even if you're trying to, make a more casual game and, close the skill gap for players and stuff like that, doing it in such just like a terrible manner, in my opinion, in which, you'll trip after, dodging a few times and stuff like that. That is by far the worst thing they probably implemented in the entire series. And obviously, there's other things that are terrible, like, Meta Knight can glide across the screen if you know how to do that. I can't do it. But obviously, I'm not going to, waste my time trying to learn something like that regardless. I'm sure it's super easy, but you're not going to see me doing it. But, I also like that, this game is kind of like the competitive scene's least favorite game because of, like, the mechanics and how casual it is and stuff like that. I'm a casual gamer, as you can tell, so it's petty, but I do think it's kind of funny when, like, the competitive games, the competitive gamers kind of get, a little bit of something they don't like and whatnot, and it's kind of like games are based off of, for the casual player with, the single player modes and extra modes and mini games and stuff like that. And, you know, I think it feels like around the PS2 era, you know, with the Wii, the GameCube, and all that sort of stuff, that was kind of when, like, the casual market was still, you know, at its peak for, like, what they were trying to, you know, games were trying to appeal to. And I'm not saying, like, I hate competitive gamers or anything like that, and it makes sense. I mean, you know, to appeal to your, you know, your demographic and stuff like that. But, you know, I loved how back in these days, you know, if you had a game, you know, especially like fighting games like Mortal Kombat or Smash or something like that, you had so many different modes to play. And the thing I love about Smash Bros is, you know, we still do have a lot of that. It's just that I think, you know, and I get why, you know, eventually they had to kind of dial back on those things, remove some of the single player modes, and you know, try and come up with new ideas and stuff like that for them and whatnot, and focus more on the gameplay and the multiplayer and stuff like that. But you know, this and Melee were the peak of the single player content for me. You know, obviously classic mode, like I mentioned. You know, you had adventure mode in Melee, you got all-star mode in both games. Break the targets, I think it was definitely the better version in Melee, where everybody had their own instead of, you know, the 5 preset levels and stuff like that you have for break the targets in this game. Home Run Derby was also a cool, fun little side mode. Events modes were great, stuff like that. I like it in Brawl better just because I think they were a little too difficult for my taste in Melee. Like, eventually by the time you got to the end of them, I mean, like, you know, the challenges were take out these 3 guys while they're all going and jumping you on like a very high difficulty level. You know, it just kind of got like, you know, a little bit of that bullshit, in my opinion. And I don't know, I think the trophy... I also like these games more too because, you know, the Wii era, you know, specifically the GameCube and the N64 eras, because that's what, you know, these games were based off of, Melee and Brawl, because they came out pretty early in the life cycles of the consoles. So, you know, Brawl has all the GameCube stuff going on, and then, you know, Melee is kind of based off the N64 era of Nintendo. You know, so obviously those are some of my favorite eras, you know, and stuff like that. So, I mean, it appeals to me a lot. Smash for Wii U, you know, I don't have any issues with that game, but I don't know, I just never really, it was kind of when, like, I fell off well with the series, because, you know, the people that I hung out with didn't really play it that much. You know, I used to always play this game with my brother and his friends and stuff like that. This was around the time, you know, the Wii U was just around the time when my brother in general was just not really into gaming as much anymore, and then the Switch kind of revitalized that for him and, you know, me and all of us and stuff like that. I still played games, but it was like Xbox 360 era, you know, and stuff like that. You know, the WWE games were kind of all I played, you know, and a little bit of like some Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. But once the Switch came out, you know, that was a very special time in my life and all my friends' lives. And, you know, it felt like we would have like 20 guys over, you know, 20 of us over doing Smash tournaments or, you know, 8-player Smashes and stuff like that. And it was just awesome. Which, you know, I think when I do World of Light at some point, I'll probably go over all that Switch stuff and, you know, a lot more personal stories as well, you know, just because, like I said, I mean, I'm pretty much in the understanding at this point that whenever I release videos, I'm going to get, like, you know, 2 to 5, a good video, I should even say a great Let's Play video on my channel at this point is, you know, 5 views, and it does suck because, you know, I do put, you know, a decent amount of effort in these videos and stuff like that, and, you know, they're just gameplay videos, so, like, I understand, you know, a lot of people don't want to watch them and stuff like that, but, it gets annoying because when they were on my main channel, you know, I would be able to get, you know, 50 to 100 views and stuff like that. You know, sure, that's not a lot, but I mean, that's a hell of a lot more than 2, and it's just annoying that on this new channel, and I kind of expected it first, but it's just, I didn't realize how bad it is, you know, to start out as a new YouTuber, you know. I know I got very lucky with my original channel being on Max and stuff like that, with, you know, coming up with my Aki Secrets and that actually gaining traction and people wanting to see it and stuff like that. But, yeah, I mean, it's just, even then, like, even before I got that, you know, I was still getting, you know, 20 to 30 views on my Let's Play videos and stuff like that. And nowadays, it's just, on this new channel, it's like YouTube does not want to promote it in any way. And you know, once again, I mean, if they're promoting and people don't want to watch the videos, you know, because my click-through rate's never very good, you know, and I acknowledge that, but it's very annoying in which, you know, I can even have good click-through rate, you know, but because they're not promoting it, giving impressions, which is, you know, how often it shows up on, you know, maybe like a recommended tab or like on someone's, you know, home screen when they're scrolling and stuff like that. Because they don't show up on that, you know, like I'm lucky if I get 10 impressions, you know. And I understand, you know, you get more impressions and more people click on your videos. Well, you gotta at least show people the videos, you know, to be able to get impressions. And, you know, and I don't know, it doesn't really make sense to me. It's kind of like, how am I supposed to play if I don't have, if you don't give me the opportunity, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I would be fine, you know, with just like 10 views, you know, a video or something like that, but it feels like at this point, well, I'm still going to continue uploading because I love playing these games and stuff like that, and it's kind of like something where like I'm going to be able to, you know, look back on these days and stuff like that. I just wish there were more impressions and more chances of people to watch my videos and stuff like that. Because on my older channel, people were willing to watch them, but, you know, all those people on my other channel, you know, they just don't get the recommendations anymore, unfortunately. But that is going to be all for today's episode, so thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out next week's episode on Nintendo Tuesday. Ring the notification bell to be notified of future episodes. Above all, also, please remember to have a nice day.